Happy President's Day in the US, I think. Stock market's closed, but the blockchain's open for business. And if I'm not mistaken, OUSD has generated over $20,000 of yield today, which I'm pretty happy about. This, of course, is the Origin Community Call, and today we're planning to, check in briefly on a few engineering sprint projects. We'll have a demo from Tom to show his progress on the on-chain governance work. And then I wanted to talk for a minute about how we're branding one of our smart contracts, which tends to cause some confusion with the DApp. We've talked about it a little before, but I think we should do something about it. And of course, you can find the meeting notes in the Origin Dollar discussion channel that's in our Discord server. And you can also join this call in the future if you happen to be watching on YouTube. And I say it every week, but at the risk of being redundant, that is at originprotocol.com/Discord. So join us if you have not already. Are there any other topics that we should cover today? Or does anyone have any announcements they want to start off with? All right, I had a few things that I wanted to flag. The first of which was that we're seeing a few redeem transactions run out of gas, and it doesn't appear that they're manually editing the gas limit because it's not a round number and it's approximately the same amount that works other times. Is this something that Doman could look into when he's back? Or Daniel, did you want to dig into it a little bit?
I'm good with Doman looking into it when he gets back. I'm wondering if it's something infrastructure side. I had a completely bog standard set one variable transaction run out of gas this morning, run through, as part of the deploy thing, but it was not anything to do with OUSD or big things. It was just set this variable. So I was quite surprised that it ran out of gas. But yeah, I think Doman working on it would be good. It's definitely over the last couple of days, it's just started really happening where it wasn't before.
Yeah, I checked this, and it's definitely recommending the wrong amount. So it pops up, and if Ledger Live says this will fail until you bump it up. So I don't know if it's more expensive, maybe because people are doing these big redeems and we're pulling out on multiple strategies, or I don't know if anything changed that increased the complexity there, but if it's easy for us to just bump up the percentage of how much above we go, then we should just go ahead and do that. I feel like we could safely bump it up, 5%, 10%, deploy it, see if the error message goes away, and then we can just run with that.
Yeah, I agree. But we haven't changed anything in the last couple months about how the redeems work, or as far as the what strategies it's pulling from.
Is it just a percentage? Like, is it just a variable on how much over we round up?
I have forgotten what it is. Doman took care of it.
And Josh, now that you mentioned Ledger, I think I remember Doman saying that there was an issue where Ledger was calculating incorrectly or something. But I thought that he had looked into that. But it would make sense that some of these big redeems the users are using Ledger, and that might be why none of the rest of us are seeing it.
So there's I guess there's two different Ledger implementations. There's the native Ledger implementation, in which case it doesn't give you a way to. There's no way to tell beforehand if it's likely to fail. You just pay, a bunch of ETH, and then you find out afterwards that it failed, which is a horrible experience. Then there's the Wallet Connect approach, where you connect to your Ledger Live, and then that will also tell you that, it'll warn you ahead of time that it's about to fail. Unfortunately, they hide it in like the advanced tab. Like you have to kind of go digging to find it. So you're also quite likely to just blow past it, see that the gas looks about right. You hit the button, and then it fails. So in both experiences, it's pretty bad. So I think if it's an easy fix for us to just add a little padding to that, we should just go ahead and do that.
Okay, I'll make sure we document it, and I think Dillman will probably have some free time this sprint.
Sure.
Okay, second thing that we wanted to flag was we've got several people redeeming large amounts, and because of the conservative, security-minded approach that we have to the way this works, you can only pull funds from the default strategies. And so since we have a lot of funds allocated to a non-default strategy, being convex, then when somebody does a large redeem, it prevents other people from doing it until we move some funds back over. Daniel, I think you, first of all, you guys moved some earlier today using the 2 of 8 multi-sig strategist role, but you were going to propose doing an earlier strategy reallocation than our normal schedule.
Yeah, well, we've been running several in addition to our weekly schedule to keep it topped up as it gets low over the last couple of days. But what I'm proposing is actually a bigger change and just more a discussion on the strategist side of things, is that we switch out of using convex. The yields with convex have now gone below what you get on AVE and compound, if I'm reading the APYs correctly and kind of from the yield we're seeing. Also, if we move out, then we don't have to be constantly moving out again funds as redeems happen. Lastly, I think if we do it all in one big chunk and we match the proportions that are in 3-pool currently, instead of paying a fee, we'll actually end up with more stable coins than we're currently showing that we have in there. And so instead of right now, we're paying about $3,000 a day to pull out like 15 million or something. And so this gets us all out, one shot, and no more fees, basically. The APY alone would probably be enough to sell it, but the fact that if we do it in a shot, we have no fees, seems like it'd be a pretty big win. And at that point, I think we could probably maybe split the funds maybe 50-50 between a default strategy and a non-default strategy for each one. So that gives us 50% of the funds are safe even if we have errors. And that probably also earn us a higher APY, because if we jump everything into one of those pools, we could we'll lower APYs in whatever pool we join in, at least temporarily. So to me, that'd be basically the strategy on the strategist side. I'd love someone else to verify that convex really is earning about 1.5% right now. But from as I see it, that's what I would like to do with the strategist voting this week.
Yeah, and we all have the ability to predict the future here, and that we can look at how convex voting worked, and the free pool didn't get a single vote in this last round of voting, which means that convex, the entire block of votes from convex are not supporting the free pool anymore. Up till I think this round, I've always gotten some love from convex team. I've always made sure to give a free pool some love, but now that's not the case. So APYs on the free pool are going to plummet, over the next couple of weeks as that change in APY drips out. So I think you're right. What we do right now isn't necessarily what we do in 2 weeks, right? So the stuff that changes pretty rapidly, but I think for today, especially if we can get more stables than what we have, we should take that win while we have it.
What's the next step in making that happen?
We basically just vote on the voting that begins tonight for the proportion, or set the proportions of USDT and USDC and DAI to match what's in the 3 pool. And then when we do the strategist allocation, instead of actually doing like a reallocate, that I'll just do basically a withdraw all and allocate. Yeah. So basically, just vote what proportions are in the compound 3 pool, and roughly mix them between Aave and compound if you feel like doing that, or whatever your preference is between Aave and compound on each one.
Do we have a same as Daniel option on the vote? Follow your lead.
I'll post in governance tonight.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll be happy to cast that vote for sure.
When vote delegation, I think we need that.
Yes.
Totally. All right, that leads to. I remember telling someone in Discord. Oh, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I had one other question about that. I remember telling someone in Discord the other day that we had like, I don't remember how much, but a pretty large number of stable coins in excess of OUSD supply because of how conservative we are with exchange rates, I think is where that primarily comes from. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is it sounds like if this works the way you plan, where we end up with more stable coins after doing this reallocation, then I'm wondering if that excess ends up in the yield or if that ends up just sitting there like some of those other funds.
It ends up in the yield, and it's only a fairly small amount. It was only like $4,000, but it's nice to get $4,000 instead of pay $3,000 20 times.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I was joking about vote delegation, but I think Frank was going to take a look at that as there is a plugin in Snapshot to handle that already. Frank, I forget where we landed on that.
Yeah, I took a look. I created an issue for that. I didn't get a chance to get to the implementation. There is a couple of caveats because there's some limitations in terms of the number of calls a Snapshot plugin can make to the network. So I added some details on the issue. What do you guys think is the priority on that, given that we'll be implementing on new governance?
Pretty low. I was just hopeful that it would be a 5-minute job, but if that's not the case, we can just wait for new governance.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good then.
All right. Any other announcements or things to flag? I had one other, but want to defer to you all if you had any questions or anything else to bring up. Okay, I wanted to say thank you to a new engineering contributor who I don't think is joining us yet here, but hopefully he will soon. His name is Pedro. He's in our Discord and in GitHub, and he submitted a pull request to add a Coinbase wallet button to the dApp, which is something that we wanted for a while, and it's one of a handful of relatively simple tasks that a contributor could make to the code base. So we appreciate that, and there are always more of those if anyone would like to get their hands dirty in the code and make a contribution to the project. So thanks. Okay, let's check in on our current engineering sprint, which runs for 2 weeks from this past Thursday. The harvest upgrades that we've talked about for several weeks are deployed, and do we have all the sign off for that? Are we just waiting for the time lock now?
Still waiting for the last sign-offs to enter the time lock. But that's the next step, is entering the time lock.
Okay, so we will remind the appropriate people and make sure that happens, and then it will go live later this week. Is that right?
Yeah, we usually target Thursday, but later this week is a good answer for it.
Cool. Anything else to cover on harvest upgrades? The next project was deploying the dApp to IPFS. So that is done, and you can access it conveniently through OUSD.eth.link. I think that's what we'd recommend there. And Josh, I know you had a question on that for Doman or for Frank about the hash changing every time we deploy it, and do we want people to bookmark it or something like that. I wasn't quite following that conversation. Did we figure out what we wanted to do there?
Yeah, I think we got that sorted. It's cool that we have the IPFS version of it live. So that's really cool. And I think the only thing we need to figure out is why it's not showing up automatically in the Brave browser. When you go to Uniswap, it gives you in Brave, at least it gives you a little prompt say open in IPFS. And our version isn't doing that yet, so we need to figure out why not. But otherwise, I think everything's there. It would be nice if it loaded a little bit faster, but other than that, it all works. It's really cool.
I agree. Thanks, Doman, for working on that. And I'll check in with Doman on that, along with automated deployments that I think he was also working on. Okay. Oh, yeah, that was the next thing on the list. So then after that, Daniel, I was going to ask, it seemed like you made a lot of progress last week and this morning on the dripper. So where do we stand on that one?
It is also ready to go into the time lock. Everything, the contracts are deployed, and we have the proposal to make it live. And it came out very, very simple, which is very nice.
And so that means
lots of charts.
That means after the signers do their thing and time lock passes, then later this week we'll start seeing smoother yield, or is there like a 1 week delay for that to take effect?
At first I was thinking there would be kind of a 1 week of slower yield, but assuming we run both, execute both proposals, the harvester and the dripper together, the convex tokens that we have not sold will actually be going directly into the dripper, and so that will start it out with about $100,000 worth of yield that will then be streamed out. So it will basically just start out the next day, sending good yield out.
And that will be, and it streams out that yield over 7 days, right?
Yes.
Cool.
It's sort of more complicated than that, but basically it buffers up 7 days yield and then starts distributing out at a rate that would spread that out over the next 7 daase every time that a rebase gets called. As part of that, after that deployment's done, I'll also update our Chainlink Keeper contract to call that as part of the rebases.
Let's make sure we update the docs as well if we haven't.
Yep.
Just to add those contracts and explain how the dripper works.
I have that on my list to do, but I didn't want to do it until it was actually running.
Yeah. I do know that the dripper is probably one of the biggest points of confusion for people who are using Convex and can't figure out why their APY doesn't add up to what the advertised APY is because of the way they stream the rewards as well. So we should, we solve one problem and we get another one, which means it's harder to verify the numbers on your own unless you understand how the dripper works. So let's make sure we get that thoroughly documented.
Well, I think this should be, because it will be using post-dripper numbers for our APY displays. I think in that case, suddenly everything will match. It's the goal that your expectations are exactly what you get. The yield one day is similar to the yield next day, and the APYs you see aren't spiky every 2 days or 3 days. But yeah, important to document it.
Pretty exciting. Thanks, Daniel, for pushing that forward. Okay, then it looks like someone added a project here, unifying contract provider and fixing ledger issue. Is that something that the Doman was doing, I bet?
Yeah, that was one of the things I've heard Dermot say he was working on.
Okay. Cool.
I think this was a refactoring of the code in the DApp.
Yeah. Okay. Well, unless there's anything else to talk about on sprint priorities, then I think that brings us to Tom with the on-chain governance project and a possible demo.
Yes, I can give you a demo.
Wonderful.
And you have to click watch stream.
Click watch stream, yes. Is it working?
It is.
It is.
Good.
1B.
Yeah, so this is stats for OGN, which is configured in here, and the number of holders. And this is using our actual governor at the moment because the new one's compatible with it. So don't mind the colors, these are just defaults. Yeah, so this is sort of the main screen. You see the most recent proposals. And this is going to be a list of the biggest voters. This depends a bit on the contract implementation, so it's not finished yet. But we can open a proposal. And it sort of outlines the steps that happen in the proposal, the actions, along with the arguments that have been passed to each thing. It's good for verifying these. The vote data, again, depends on the implementation, so this is just placeholder for now. Go to this proposals tab. So this is all the proposals that are on the current governor. So there's a UI for creating a new proposal. I think the governor, you can store a description for the proposal. So what I'm thinking is we do a markdown file stored on IPFS and stick the hash in the description. So this is just code to sort of write out a justification for the proposal that we can store in IPFS and then cram that in that description field. And then you can go through and specify sort of the actions that are going to take place from the proposal. So here's all our contracts. You can pick one of those, and then you can choose the function that you want to call from that contract, and you can add sort of the whole chain of what you want to happen in here. And you can also this is largely inspired by the Gnosis transaction creator. You can stick the address in the ABI manually, go through, select your inputs from that. Still got to make this work nicely with proxies. So you need to be able to, so if you chose a proxy, you want to be able to choose the proxied functions, not just the proxy functions, if you know what I mean. So I've got that to do there. And there's also a sort of reallocation. These are just placeholder figures for now, so don't worry about what they say. A reallocation, this is copied from Daniel's strategist tools. So you can generate one of these if you want to. There's again, a leaderboard. This is going to show the vote power of each address and ranked by who's the biggest. I think that's it in terms of there's a fairly standard Web3 thing for connecting wallets. I might add some more in here, like Ledger. I haven't done that yet. So I think for now, that's sort of where I'm up to. I'm going to leave it here. But stuff started. I need to do the contract work and firm up how things are actually going to work in terms of how vote weight works and stuff like that to fill out these blanks in here. So I'm moving on to contract work now and leaving this for a while. Any questions?
Well, that looks super snazzy, that's for sure.
I love this.
Good. I think a lot of the main contract upgrade stuff works pretty well coming out of scripts, just because it's so it's powerful to be able to simulate what everything's going to be doing before you actually launch the proposal to do it all. The governance stuff I could see, or the strategist stuff makes a lot of sense to have a UI for picking. I'm wondering what we may need to evolve to some different strategist-specific UI that's more than just, in the end, it kind of boils down to moving funds, but for the voting, what you're actually voting on may be different than that, because then we'd kind of have to be people voting on one set of proposing. Also, I think if we actually use proposals, in the current governor, it's pretty expensive to create proposals in, whereas by using a multi-sig proposals, those are a lot cheaper to keep everything off-chain until it actually goes live. Is there off-chain support for voting in this? Kind of like snapshot-ish style?
Not at the moment, no. And yeah, I think the what you say about doing the proposals with scripts is generally the way we'll still continue to do things. It's just, I just wanted to highlight that it's not sort of black magic. Anyone can do it. They can go in there and create one if they want to.
Boy, is it cool. And I bet people will be using our code with that.
Yeah, I think it's important that we, show that this is something that anyone can do, and that you have, there's no black magic here. Everything's transparent, and anyone who wants to participate has the tools to do it without, needing to, set up our whole infrastructure and run our code base and be able to write scripts. So I think that's really cool.
Daniel,
nice work,
I
Tom.
think, yeah, great job, Tom. Daniel, I think you were maybe suggesting this, but I was going to ask, are we going to have a more informal signaling sort of voting outside of this, like keeping Snapshot around, if this one doesn't have something like that built in?
I'm assuming that question was directed to Tom?
I haven't thought too much about that, no. But I mean, Snapshot does that job well, right? So there's no point in me trying to rebuild Snapshot, but if there's anything specific that Snapshot doesn't do, we could look at that.
No, I just think that you're going to have a lot of people who have proposals that they want to make who aren't going to be able to do it in code, and so that's not a binding vote, but a lot of other projects have that signaling to indicate to the core team what they'd like to see implemented.
Yeah, I see a place for both. I think a lot of projects have the on-chain governance, and then they have a snapshot for signaling. So I think at least we start there, and if we someday want to merge it all into one unified UI, we can tackle that in the future. But for right now, I think just getting the core functionality up and making that available is a great place to start.
Cool. Any other questions for Tom? Tom, how are you feeling on timing for this project? You've been working on it for a little while, and I know you're itching to get over to the multi-chain project too.
Pretty good. I've got work to do on the vote locking implementation, which I haven't figured out everything there yet. But I'm pretty confident we can. I mean, we could even launch this without vote locking fairly quickly if we can't figure that out. But yeah, I'll figure out the vote locking. Aside from the vote locking, I think basically sort of done. The whole governance system could work as is almost.
Is there anything we need to consider for like a transition period from one to the other, or is it pretty much we just make the decision and communicate that now everything formally happens on chain.
Yeah, basically that, and I guess just figure out how we do the signaling that just talking about, sort of the whole procedure. Yeah,
for sure. All right. Well, it looks like great progress. Thanks for the demo. That's always appreciated. And I assume there's nothing new to report on layer 2 multi-chain exploration yet.
No, I haven't been looking at that.
Did you see the link that I think Coleman shared about Binance Smart Chain merging with Binance whatever other chain, and that potentially having implications if we end up doing something there?
Yeah, I read it briefly, but to be honest, I don't know anything about Binance other chain. I have to do some more research there.
Hopefully it'll be less confusing for the ecosystem once they have a single thing instead of two unrelated products. But anyway, just want to make sure that you saw that.
Yeah, I think in summary, it's like the Binance chain, which is like a Cosmos-based chain, is going to be equivalent to like a beacon chain in the ETH 2.0 spec. And then the Binance Smart Chain, the EVM compatible one, is going to be where all the smart contracts are on. And that's going to be like proof of stake or something. I don't know. But they're trying to model it after ETH.
Cool. Well, thanks for flagging that, Coleman. All right. I don't think there are any governance proposals in Snapshot right now other than our regularly scheduled allocation vote. And I at least am going to watch for Daniel's signal on how I might want to vote to be able to move all the funds to the default strategies. So that will open up tonight. Then I think that leaves us with just the last topic that I had in the discussion part of the agenda, which was we have our Flipper smart contract, as Daniel originally named it. And then we started referring to that as the OUSD swap contract. This, of course, is just the very simple one-to-one stablecoin swap contract that Daniel created, where you can put USDC, USDT, or DAI in and get OUSD out, or vice versa. I think we've realized over time, as we've had like customer support questions on the DApp, that it's confusing to have the DApp page named swap and also have a smart contract named OUSD swap. And so I was proposing that we just embrace the Flipper name and brand it as such. And then we can put something in the docs explaining like what is the Flipper, since a lot of people aren't going to know. But I think that will help alleviate some confusion when people are saying they're using the swap thing, which they mean the DApp, but they're not using the swap contract or something along those lines. And then just one other thing to flag on that is that the ENS name for the contract appears to be Origin Swap. So I guess that's another candidate if we didn't like the Flipper name. But at least when you look at the contract on Etherscan, the formal name of the contract is Flipper. Any thoughts on that? It's a relatively of low importance, but anything we can do to help alleviate confusion, I think is good.
I, of course, like the Flipper name. And it is weird and not like most things behave, because it's kind of designed so it'll run to one side and run out, sort of, or flip back and forth from side to side. So I'm good with giving it a weird name that's not like Uniswap, because it doesn't behave like Uniswap. It behaves like its own animal.
Yeah. Anyone else have an opinion?
Yeah, I'm fine going back to Flipper and keeping that consistent.
Cool. Do you have any thoughts on the ENS name? Do you want Origin Swap?
Yeah, we'll just register originflipper.eth and then just swap that in instead. So that'll be consistent as well.
All right. I think it'll be particularly interesting to do that now that we have information about Dripper, which is not I guess it's a contract, but it's a different deal. All right. There were a couple action items that I caught. Daniel, you were going to add Dripper information to the docs. And then I'll follow up with Doman on the out of gas issue and some other questions about IPFS deployment of the DApp.
Yep, I'll also be adding harvester information to the docs as well as Flipper information, or make sure Flipper information is renamed when we rename it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before we go, or anyone interested in introducing themselves or saying hello? If not, then we'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Until then.
Have a good one.
Thanks all.